Good morning. Welcome to a Mavenspire Superfriend Spotlight. I'm Michael Tannenhouse, CEO of Mavenspire, and the Superfriend Spotlights highlight Mavenspire's belief that to kind of solve the challenges we have to solve for our customers on a day-to-day basis, it takes a village, a rather super extended village, actually. And after 25 years of doing this, we have a lot of friends, and a lot of them do amazing stuff, hence Super Friends. No, we weren't trying to trade on anybody else's brand. And so this morning, I am joined by one of our cybersecurity super friends, Cynet and Itamar. Itamar, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Good morning, and thank you for having me. And my name is Itamar Medioni, as you said. I am a security researcher in Cynet. I've been in the industry for around 7 years. In my job, what I do usually is I look into the bits and bytes of what attackers do to make our customers' life miserable, and I boil it down to what do we need to build, what innovation do we need to bring into our product to stop that from happening.
So you have the really challenging, frustrating, energizing job of evolving with the bad guys and building into Cynet technology the next big way to push back. Is that right?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
right?
indeed. If we can look at it as a endless cat and mouse race, I'm always the cat. I'm always on the cat side. I'm chasing down those little rabbit holes or mouse holes, if you may.
So when we think about cybersecurity, I think traditionally, at least Mavenspire has considered it sort of a problem with parts, right? We have a people problem, we have an expertise problem, and then depending on where you put AI and automation, you have sort of an intelligent automation problem,
Hmm.
all of which come together to form our day-to-day life in the
Yeah,
cybersecurity industry.
yeah.
So why don't we start with people? Like they're the
Hmm.
blessing and the curse, right? Because
Indeed.
people are kind of the point of it all, right? Where we're
Yeah.
trying to protect organizations and allow them to work, and organizations and companies are about relationships and doing things, and all of this is a people interaction kind of thing.
Of course, of
So,
course. Yeah.
so where,
If
what is the biggest blessing and the biggest curse for you about
Mhm.
people?
Okay, so first of all, the blessing is if there weren't people behind the keyboards and mice, then we won't have a job, right? People, if people weren't there to create mistakes to begin with, attackers wouldn't have anything to work with. Cybersecurity as an industry wouldn't be alive. So the blessing is people for one end. Also, another blessing in people is that we have, as you said, we have the people who usually make incidents happen, and we have the experts. So the experts are a real blessing in this world, because I cannot imagine a world without people whose whole life goal is to help save the people who are not knowledgeable enough in this field. And the curse is, I think, people being naive, people sleeping in their guard posts, thinking it won't happen to me, thinking I can click whatever I want, being reckless, and that's the fuel that this fire is burning with. So yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I was having a conversation with a bunch of executives just a week or so ago where um, we were trying to sort of change the conversation about cybersecurity. I think that just because of how it developed, it sort of has gotten the sort of reputation of being a technology problem. But
Hmm.
we have come to understand that it really isn't. It's a risk problem, right? Just like people buy fire insurance or errors and emissions insurance, or like it's all the same risk, right? It's looking at the things that can affect your business, figuring out which ones are more likely to happen, and then doing something about it. And it just so happens that cyber has become more important, more in the front, right? You sit there and you run a disaster recovery exercise where we used to joke about meteors hitting buildings. It's considered kind of unlikely, right? But
Yeah.
now you say, oh, okay, a ransomware attack hits the building, like everyone goes quiet and says, that's not funny. Like that, because it is not far-fetched, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is something that could happen every Tuesday, right? It is definitely a thing. And, data exfiltration and people selling your data, this is all a big money-making exercise these days for the bad
yeah,
guys. So
yeah.
so let's talk a little bit about the big cyber term social engineering,
Mhm.
or sometimes what I call people just want to be nice, and bad people exploit that. How do we help people who just want to be nice, helpful, serve somebody, get through their day without, having that goodness turned against them?
Yeah, so I think it really boils down to education, right? So if I can speak from my own experience as a person outside of work, you can look at my parents, for example. My parents are an older generation. When this hit their phones and their emails, they were so unknowledgeable. They used to call me up saying, "Oh, somebody saying that I have to pay them this amount of money or that amount of money." But today, a few years later, with a bit of education, they will tell me this is fake, right? This is a scam, right? So at the same scale is if we look at an organization, is it how aware are the non-technical people who do their everyday jobs about social engineering? How prone are they for social engineering? Is all only if you ask me, it gauges with how educated they are. Meaning, if an organization does drills or it has enough walls to protect those employees from social engineering. So I think it begins and ends with education. I usually say, people sometimes ask me what antivirus should I do, and of course I tell them always, if you're an organization, Cynet. If you're a person at your home, then you won't install an EDR at your own computer, but you can be the best protection software for yourself. How suspicious you are with what you do, and how informed you are with the risks that are lurking out there in the internet or in your inbox. I think that's like the whole premise of it all. Don't you agree?
Um, it's funny. So I also have parents, and it is always amazing to me. Like, I agree with you that education is really important. I agree that once somebody has it in their head that something is possible, they will be more likely then to check, like do a brain check on, now that I know that this is likely or even possibly something fake, let me just double check that it's real before proceeding. Like if you didn't even know it was possible, like the first time somebody used an AI gen of your kid to ask you to transfer money or whatever, if you didn't know that was possible, you're not going to take a moment. You're just going to
Yeah,
do it, right?
yeah,
So education and understanding what is the realm of possibility, I think, is really important. And yet, even with that, even with safeties, even with people installing EDR, we still have a high percentage of attacks that still get through, right?
yeah.
They do because they make the news, right? And it is also both heartbreaking and sort of humorous when security companies have attacks that are successful on them. I'm
Hmm.
not implying that happened to Cynet this week or anything like that, but there's the case study on like LastPass where a lead development engineer is home for the holidays. Somebody raises a Sev1 ticket, and they use their kid's machine to clear a ticket, and the kid's machine was compromised. Or just recently, we had the situation where somebody called into a help desk that is a huge technology company operating help desks for big companies and convinced them that it was so important to change this password right now, and it let them in, right? And
Yeah,
that is all social engineering too, right?
of course,
And those people are trained and they are educated and they understand the realm of possibility, and still they just wanted to be nice, right? So
of
how do you
course.
help them How do we help people who want to be nice, who have the information, and just make the bad call? Particularly in an age of AI, where it's getting harder to figure out the real from the fake.
Of course. So first of all, as you said, you need to assume that an attack is going to happen and that it's going to happen to you. That's a very important point to begin with. This is also at Cynet when we do our research and when we create rules and when we create protection mechanisms, we keep in mind that an attack is going to happen and we might find it in an early stage or in a late stage of attack, meaning it's going to happen and we're going to be there across the whole line. So not trusting anything from our point, this is how we approach it. But when you look at organizations, we usually say, okay, you need to prepare playbooks. It's about being resilient. It's about how fast you come back, how fast you give, how fast you punch back, and that's usually a very important thing that we also, let's say, in our PsyOps team, when Platinum Care, for example, helps some large companies with a lot of endpoints and a lot of employees, which is usually an impossible task to maintain education-wise. It's usually a task that we can assist with as well. So we provide that monthly meeting with that topic that's super important for them, so we can keep them on the forefront of what's the biggest threat coming your way right now, and that's always something very important. And you were talking also about AI, so yeah, deep fake is crazy. It's coming everywhere, and also we've already seen in the wild some companies being attacked with AI driven malware, meaning it's a malware that is polymorphic, meaning it's changing itself as it goes, and it's using, instead of an attacker sitting on the other end, it's a ChatGPT sort of engine that's feeding into that malware. And I think one of the best solutions that we do for that is fighting fire with fire, meaning at the age of AI, everything is going to be so much faster than what we can do as humans, meaning we only have as much capacity as we can to handle as much incidents or events as we can, and that's where we can bring in AI of our own to actually fight back and give us a fighting chance in that field. And we do that using SciAI specifically. And I think it's sort of it's a big range of solutions that we need to employ in that direction.
Yeah, it's interesting when I have conversations with organizations that build technology around cyber.
Hmm.
It seems like most of them have sort of agreed, including Cynet, that the first step is to have all the information, right? On one hand, when you're building a program for an organization, you try to cut the noise down and you get just down to the things that people really must react to. But when you're on your side of the equation, you actually need all the noise, right? Because
Yeah.
what you're looking for is the behavioral stuff going on where someone is trying to slip through the cracks. And so I know that Cynet has made some strides in terms of being able to pull data in from all these different partners and create a huge ecosystem to be able to just get the data. But do you want to speak for a moment on why the pivot to like the all-in-one kind of thinking, where it just seemed like it wasn't working to give people options for opting in and opting out of stuff, and
Hmm.
instead it just needed to be everything is on, everything's opted in.
Yeah. So first of all, and I will say that in a sentence, is that, yeah, silo tools are a bad thing. You can have a lot of different tools from many vendors, and they don't speak the same language. So that data might be there, but the insight from that data is not. And that's a thing that we take great pride in, is that we can see everything in one place. We have everything on the same panel, and the organization always has visibility to everything in an easy kind of space. And also we can utilize data from one engine and use it to correlate with events on another engine, and that usually helps us create more efficient and more reliable detections for things that's happening in the organization. So I think that's really the shift. Also, I believe that managing too many tools is a nightmare. That's in that case, yeah.
Well, certainly stuff can get through if you have to look at 5 different panes of glass every hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, Mavenspire retests all of the people we partner with every couple of years, and full disclosure, we just finished retesting our security stack just this year. Cynet once again came out on top as one of our top partners, and some of the things that were really interesting is that not every vendor covers Chromebooks or mobile devices as part of what they define as all-in-one, and yet these are devices that are, like, in the education world, they're dominant. And even, what do people go to get their MFA credentials normally? Their phone,
Yeah.
right? And so if the phone isn't protected, you never know if somebody's watching you do it on your phone. Like, you have to be able to close those doors of
course.
places that people can look at what's going on. I think that people forget that you can get malware on your phone. People can watch you on your phone.
Yeah, of course.
And so it's interesting that all-in-one from a Cynet point of view is all of that, right? Everything you think of in the Mac, Linux, Windows world, but also the identity world and the mobile world, all coming together to make sure that it truly is all of the telemetry. Right?
Of course. So if I can add to that is also, yeah, identity protection, for example. That's something that's really working with, if we're talking about people, it's working in many levels. So one level is mistakes. We're covering up for mistakes. I used to do a lot of offensive security as well. And in my experience, I've seen many big organizations, sometimes organizations that are coming from the security departments or sectors, and they had so many holes in their defenses that only related to human mistakes and human error. If we're talking about Active Directory, for example. So I've seen people make mistakes that are so crucial that they can allow an attacker to gain whatever he needs from that organization in a matter of minutes or seconds, and that's where identity protection usually comes in clutch, because even if those mistakes exist, having that last resort of let's do an MFA over your login, that's like most of the times that's the thing that saves in the last minute or the last resort for that organization. And when we talk about mobile, then yeah, that's also how Cynet looks into people and what people do and how they behave. And yeah, don't be naive. Every device in your home, even your refrigerator and AC that's connected to the Wi-Fi, is a door to the open world. And yes, we require that to be defended as well, because that's how we look at people,
Yeah, we're sort of so we do a lot of OT work as well within Mavenspire, and so it's interesting this week. It's Brickstorm, where here's an attack where people are targeting virtual appliances that run web servers on them, so that they can sideload something that we're in a place where no one ever looks, right? And the original attacks were against, like, VMware and vCenter servers that are appliances that are these web servers with the command and control for VMware on them. But my thought immediately went to the refrigerator with the web interface, or the printer with the web interface, because the same attack works, right? Sideload on something where no one ever looks there. And we're having to rewrite policy and procedure to say periodically we need to take these things and not just patch them but reload them, because it's the same chain of events. Like, I feel bad for them, but Citrix NetScaler has been like the poster child for the virtual appliance where somebody sneaks an attack in, and just patching it isn't good enough, because yes, you're revving it, but you're not taking the attack out. But if you blow it away and you redo it from time to time,
yeah,
instead of just patching it, then you're at least potentially killing an attack you didn't know about. but it's more work, right? So it's
Yeah,
that
of course.
productivity versus safety in the unknown world kind of thing, which is, becomes such a thing in cybersecurity. I was listening when you were talking about getting back to work, recovery, right? Hardest part about it these days for us is not the recovery part. Like that we baked a long time ago, even made managed offerings about it. What the hardest part is right now is understanding that the day of the attack is not the day of entry. So if you're having to go back 6 months to day of entry, that's a lot of data loss. So instead, what you
Yeah.
have to do is air gap a clean room and figure out how to pull out of yesterday,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
bad thing that got in 6 months ago, and really make sure it's out to be able to come back to operations with all your data and without the bad guys. But
Of course, of
we've seen
course.
it not go right, where people lose, don't have them all out and they just come right back like 2 minutes later.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
here
Sometimes,
we are again.
sometimes cleaning an environment like that is nearly impossible, and that's a thing that I think I've seen one good example with my own eyes at how implementing the correct teams and deploying the right tools really helps with bouncing back. So I can say about one of our customers that began its way with us while it was in a ransomware incident. So it was a big company that has been encrypted already. So they were lights out. They were trying to recover, and they were just near the end of the cycle of cleaning out the room and bringing the systems back up, and that's when they deployed us. And also, while deploying us, psyops has taken over monitoring their environment at the same time. And at that time, we were able to see the moment we turned on our detections, we were able to see the attacker trying to make its way back into the environment, trying to reestablish a foothold. And really, at that moment, psyops were able to really encapsulate that event, bring it up with the customer, and say, this is exactly where the attacker is right now. We're going to escalate this event. We're going to isolate the attacker, and that way we can stop the event from repeating itself while you're trying to recover. So so yeah, recovering can be hard. It can be a very frustrating event because it can happen over and over. But it really depends on uh, how alert you are for the second and third wave of attacks. And also, sometimes, as you said data recovery. So yeah, data recovery is only as good if it's offline and nobody's touching it, and but yeah, I understand completely what you're saying.
It's super fun to keep like 6 copies of everything now. The world's not growing in storage or anything. We're just keeping copies of everything. But and that is sarcasm for those of you
Yeah.
out there who don't get the fact that we have like double and triple digit growth of data, and we need to keep a lot of copies of it and keep the costs down all at the same time. It's like infinitely problematic, but still necessary because the bad guys go for the copies first to make you more desperate. So you have to have copies like everywhere to try to deal with that. So I want to go back to something you said. The general population doesn't understand the terminology Cynet uses for its offerings, and you made a comment about platinum care a little bit ago.
Yeah.
I wanted to reframe or reposition us in the conversation. So we were talking about people, expertise, and automation.
Hmm.
So, in my opinion, Cynet does a great job in kind of balancing the AI to get through the noise and the SOC people to watch those evaluations and make determinations of what is a threat, what is a potential threat, and really bring it down to just a few things people need to deal with every day. But then there's yet another layer on top of that, which platinum care and such, which is taking a bit of the longer view, a greater view.
Yeah.
Do you want to comment on like how you built that take with all those different layers?
Of course, of course. So Saab started off, as you said, as a group that aims to split to two. We had people monitoring, so it's the SOC team, and we also have research that always is fed by that SOC team. It knows what threats to feed into the system so we can prevent it. But as time went by and everything in this industry scaled, some organizations had a hard time with a lot of alert fatigue and data fatigue. They weren't able to keep up with what's going on, including with our product, since you can imagine that as the more data points that you have, the harder it gets. So that's where Platinum Care came in, and took that specific customers and provided them, and provides them still, with an assigned analyst. So people who all their job is to read all of the alerts, every incident and every event. They go through everything, and including the low or informative alerts that they have. The severity might be low, they might be insignificant, but they still go through it. And also, they provide tweaks, and they whitelist for the customer. They get to know their environment by heart, so they really take in mind that other than learning the events that they're seeing, they really build themselves a mapping of the organization, and they act as if they are a part of the security team of that customer. So they're an integral part. They provide education, and they also provide a monthly overview that shows exactly what happened in the past month, and they do some other cool stuff. But I think really the main thing here is they aim to provide that sort of customability to the customer. So they want the customer to have the ability to choose how it's being contacted, for what it's being contacted. If it wants the assigned analysts to have the freedom to isolate or to take proactive measures without getting through a communication chain in order to do that first, to minimize times. So that's really like a premium that is really required for some customers, and I think it's amazing.
And we were happy that this year it was extended to the managed service community. So we have Platinum Care now behind us that actually helps all of our customers in the chain, because we're taking that bigger, longer look. And yeah, we're working to get the response time of legitimate threats down to minutes, right? Not like single digit minutes, right? Because if it's really that bad, that's what it needs to be, right? And that's how it's like landing the plane, right? Like, of the 6-hour flight, it's that 2 minutes that is like the panicky part, right? Of the 24-hour cycle of watching cybersecurity, even the threats that need to be looked at, not all of them are like, oh my God, if you don't do something in a minute, it's going to be bad. They're just things to look at. But there's every now and then the one that's like, the next 2 minutes will determine how bad this is going to be. And it's great that Cynet has created something to fill in the gap on that 2-minute marker, from the time the tool, like, just for it to send an email is longer than 2 minutes, right? So now we have it's just that bad, bam, like, kind of capability.
Exactly.
To back it up. So 2 other things I wanted to catch in this session. The first one is an unfair question, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
So one of the things I've been commenting about publicly recently is that I had reviewed, how they do the top 10 ways people get breached every year, and there's always a study on it. So I was reviewing the last 5 years of them up through 2024. And what I found is that the top 10 hasn't changed. The only thing that really changed is the position within the top 10 of various attacks. So as much as we've told everyone to use MFA, like, people not using MFA is still in the top 10, right? Of course, also in the top 10 is MFA attacks that subvert MFA, but that's beside the point, right? I am starting to look at the 2025 data, which isn't complete yet, but is just starting to come out on what is the trend through Q3. And it looks like it's going to happen again, that the top 10 is the same top 10 with just a few things changing order. So my unfair question to you is, if the top 10 ways people get breached doesn't change, how do we break this cycle? Like, I get it's a cat and mouse game, but how do we finally break the cycle so that different things are in the top 10?
I think the unfairness in this question specifically comes from the point that, yeah, if you title it, so the titles never change, but the methods always do. So yeah, as you said, it's a cycle that we need to break, but I think breaking it is nearly an impossible thing. You know, I mean, there will always be a void, meaning eventually people write code. That code becomes the product that people rely on. Let's say an MFA provider, let's say a cloud service, let's say whatever. And on the other end, on the other side, there's an attacker that is also a human, but a human that's maybe slightly more incentivized to bypass the logic of the person who wrote the code to begin with. Because usually, if we look at coders and we look at attackers, coders want something to work, attackers want something to break, and in the middle we have security people that wants whatever is working to work securely. So, so I think the answer can come in a lot of ways. So I think if we're looking short range, then yeah, probably the cycle won't break, and it won't break as easily as we think it will. That's the most realistic, down to earth answer that I can give. It never ends, and it never will. And but if we want to look to the imaginative future, then if you're a nerd like me, then you see quantum computing and what's happening right now, and you see that there are computing companies that put all of their money on, yeah, encryption is going to break in a few years. The moment quantum computers are out, there will be no encryption that is not breakable. What do we do then? Today we rely on the premise that our data is encrypted, and it's very hard to decrypt it. What's going to happen the day it's breakable? So I think you can look at this cycle from many different angles, but I think the most important thing is to just keep on running the race, and also be humble in the sense that, yeah, I can try to defend. I can try to out chess the chess masters, which are the attackers, and try to think 10 steps ahead. But be humble enough to say, somewhere out there will be someone who will outrun us. We will just need to be resilient and catch them as fast as we can.
I hadn't really considered that I hadn't thought about it as the top 10 list is not a list of attacks per se. It's a list of weak spots in the castle. And the weak spots don't really change if you're building a castle. The mitigations for the weak spots change, right? Like, I'm sitting here thinking about when they sloped out castle walls to make them stronger so that people couldn't burrow under them, and like
Yeah.
that sort of stuff in history. That it's sort of the same thing playing out in the cyber world. Like, the reason the list doesn't change is there's still the weak spots,
Yeah.
right? And it's just which ones did we do the best job at in mitigating this year, and which ones did they do the best job at innovating to be better bad guys on this year.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So one more question for you. One more thing to talk about, I think, this morning. Um, so it used to be really easy to try to figure out which tools were better than the others. There were these evaluations, and people would, like, especially with like AV testing, they would tell you who the winners were and who the losers were. But as we started getting into complex cyber stacks and operations, like, there wasn't a way to do that kind of test anymore. So they came up with tests that looked at what do you see, what can you fix, and at what percentage of false do you do it. And some of those tests are like MITRE, right? Um, Cynet has a great history of doing well in tests like MITRE, and I full transparency, I might have seen the results for this year already.
Yeah.
And I do believe they're public now.
Yeah.
So, like, do you want to comment on? So, we've had to try to teach our customers how to read these more complex tests where it is actually difficult because there is no declared winner and every vendor says they won. Like, literally everyone says they won, right?
Yeah. If
How
everybody won, then who lost, right?
Right. Nobody lost. Are you kidding? That's an expensive test. Nobody lost, right?
Exactly.
Everybody just got better from the experience. I remember the day we had to teach our customers about for those who don't know, there's this results portal, and there are many things that have been done with this results portal to keep the people who are paying for the testing from killing MITRE over it. And one of them is it's very difficult to compare them all together on an individual basis. They sort of disable that. But there's this little tiny slider on the control panel that's like, how was it the first time we tested it? And how was it after, with those results, people fixed their configs and ran it again? And the problem with the slider is this. If the default configuration is going to be the first test, that's what people in the field are going to feel, then that's the right result. Unless they change the default configuration and push it out to everyone so that the second test results will be the norm, which doesn't happen that often. To be frank, people don't re-push their default configs.
Of course.
Then you're not going to get the better score in the field. You're only going to get the first score, right? And so having people turn off the slider and start to freak out on their very expensive product is one of those honesty moments where it's just about knowing the brutal truth, so you know what to do about it, right? If you have the list of changes you have to make, go make them yourself, right?
Yeah.
Now, in the Cynet world, and do correct me for transparency if I'm wrong. The results without doing it the second time have been the last few years pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah.
Good detection, good ability to resolve, very low false. What was 2025 like? Is the same pattern?
I can proudly say that this year we had 100% detection visibility with 0 false positives and without a need for configuration change. So for those who are not familiar with how these tests are conducted, basically we have a few days of tests. In those days, we have labs with our product deployed in, and MITRE comes and provides us with an attack pattern that resembles the newest and the most hot things in the industry. For example, this year they added cloud. Up until now, it was Linux, it was Mac and Windows, and this year we got AWS, for example, and really what they're coming to do is to see how ready is the product for everything that's hot and going on right now. So as you said, without the need for config change, that's where you really shine, in my opinion, as well. And really this year we've had no need for a configuration change, so we've had everything detected on the first day right off the bat. And it's amazing because it really shows also how the communication works well. So we have PsyOps analysts and we have threat analysts, and they, on the daily throughout the year without the evaluation, they create a lot of rule sets. They build everything up to the point where in the months before the evaluation, where we see what we're expected to know, sometimes there's not much to do, and that's the beauty of it. It really shines in those days of the evaluation.
Well, that's good news. So just I'm thinking about this. So detection 100%.
Yeah.
How did it go on the remediation side? Were you able to fix 100% or a little close to it, or like where did that land? Do you remember?
Yeah, so we had 100% protection as well, meaning we didn't miss anything. Yeah, out of
And
all
then
the
a low
attacks.
false positive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was a little shocking last year, not for Cynet, but the Mavenspire watches the top 5 and the top 10 for 2 different reasons. Keep in mind there are a lot of cyber products out in the world. There's a lot of technology, right? So to make it to the top 10 is actually not a terrible thing in the world of thousands of products. But watching the spread of what makes them the top 10, like what are they doing wrong? Even in the top 5 last year, like number 5 was pretty good at detection, pretty good at resolution, but it was a 30% false positive rate at number 5, right? And if you, I mean, for those who don't understand what that would mean day to day, 30% false positive is a ton of noise hitting people to go check stuff that isn't really real. 30% is like your day of just checking stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's way too much, right?
Yeah.
The people are proud of 1% false positive. Cynet's proud of 0% false positive, right?
You can't see the forest.
But
through
even
the
in the
trees.
top 5 last year, like 30% was 5, which meant the top 4 were the ones cutting down the noise. And don't be fooled. To detect it all, to respond to it all, and to do it without false positives, those are 3 different, very difficult problems. And so, you know, some of the top 10, the detections can be down to like 80%. Like, so I see 80% of the bad guy stuff, which is scary, right? So when you're up at the top 5, and keep in mind, thousands of products out there, right? The top 10 is imperfect. The top 4 to 5, maybe the definition of perfection is still not perfect, right? It's there's Cynet having 100%, 100%. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. It's hard earned figures. We are proud of that. Our teams have been working around the clock, even regardless to the monetary evaluation. This is how we operate on a daily basis, and we are just happy that we get to show it to the world. Amazing people doing amazing work.
That sounds like a closing thought to me. I was going to ask you if you had one, but then you said something perfect. So I want to thank you for your time this morning. I want to thank our audience for watching and learning about this village that we have to keep that keeps us all safe. And I wish you all a great day.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael.